Hey guys, I'm Apox Fox, and welcome back to my channel. I like to go into every game I play with an open mind and as little expectations as possible. I've gotten myself pretty disappointed in the past, and I've definitely learned from those experiences. As much as I've gotten better at keeping my expectations reasonable, sometimes I really can't help but get sucked back into the hype. This time around, it was for a little game called NieR Automata. This is by far the most requested game on my channel, with pretty much everybody calling NieR one of their favorite games of all time. So unfortunately, after hearing so many positive reviews from you guys, my expectations going into NieR were pretty high. That doesn't mean I hated it though. In fact, I think there's a lot to be loved about this game. If you didn't know already, NieR Automata is developed by Square Enix, who also created some amazing games like the Final Fantasy series and Kingdom Hearts. But let me tell you, those games pale in comparison to how much NieR was able to accomplish in just a single game. That being said, I'm still pretty conflicted towards this game, so let's just get into the review. In NieR Automata, you play as 2B, a combat android sent to Earth on a mission to destroy as many other robots as she can. That way all the humans who are living on the moon can safely return home. Needless to say, this game is pretty abstract. It takes place very far in the future, and because of that, the social hierarchy is completely different than what it used to be. Which brings me to one of NieR Automata's strengths, which is its exceptional world building. You aren't bombarded with information at the start of the game, you're told everything I just said, and the rest is really up to you to find out as you explore the world and progress through the game. NieR deals with some pretty hefty subjects, like what does it mean to be human, or what really is consciousness, which feels very relevant today with how connected we've become to technology and the rise of AI. I think this aspect of the story is easily the strongest, and the biggest motivator towards finishing the game is trying to find the answer to these questions. Although it does make some of the twists a little bit predictable because of how often this subject matter is shown in TV and movies. I think the characters in this game are all pretty interesting, especially 2B and her partner 9S. They have a really cool dynamic that'll make you care about them even from the first scene. I guess my biggest issue with the storytelling in NieR is that the character writing can feel pretty inconsistent. Sometimes a character will do something that seems totally out of place for their ideals, which is mostly fixed by the end of the game, but it did make me feel a little disconnected from their motivations. There's the excuse that 2B gets reset every time she dies, making her motivations change, but it's hard to connect to a character if their early moments of development don't have any weight to them. Other than that though, I think the story here was pretty strong, especially the second half of the game felt like it really found its footing, but it was a slight drag to get there. Let's talk about gameplay for a bit. Now this definitely feels like you're playing a Square Enix game. The combat and movement in general is very floaty, if that makes sense. You never feel like you're fully connected to the ground below you as you run around. It's kind of hard to explain, but sometimes I feel like 2B doesn't really fit into the surrounding world. I actually really enjoyed the exploration element of the game for the most part, especially when you open up these huge ruins of old cities and amusement parks, which are just beautiful. This mixed with the absolutely amazing soundtrack, I completely fell in love with the music in this game, which has a very rustic folk vibe to it, with really grand vocals sung in a made-up language created by the singer. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. If you love video game music, you gotta check it out. There are some segments in more linear sections of the game that are less fun to explore, especially with the experimental camera angles that kind of take you out of the immersion a bit. There are tons of these sections all over the game, which seems like they would be a good idea on paper, but are a little disorienting and sloppy in practice. The only times I ever died in this game was when something weird was going on with the camera. Maybe I'm just stupid, but I wasn't a fan. They also use these experimental cameras in the dogfighting sections of the game, and I just have to say that the flying stuff was probably my least favorite part about NieR Automata. It's obvious they were going for a classic arcade feel with these, but I found myself constantly wishing for them to be over. I know it sounds like I'm really digging into this game, but trust me, that was the worst of it, because the land combat was awesome. It took me a little bit to get into, but as you progress and upgrade and unlock new abilities and weapons, you will want to fight every chance you get. And you get tons of chances to fight in the really great boss battles, which do take a long time to get through, but the designs of these bosses are stunning, and their attacks are super fun to learn and take advantage of. The best part is that you feel like you're getting the most out of NieR's story during these fights, and it always feels like there's weight to them. And again, the boss music in this game, it's just so good. So NieR Automata has a lot to like about it. For a game to really get your brain working and have you question the meaning of life is pretty rare to come by these days, especially when the themes are more relevant today than they were back in 2017 when it came out. I do think NieR Automata is worth playing now, especially if you're a fan of Square Enix games like Final Fantasy. This is also a lesson for me to keep my expectations more reasonable, because if I didn't have such high expectations for NieR, I might have overlooked some of my biggest issues with it. Now, this isn't to say you shouldn't keep recommending games to me. I would have never played some of my favorite games of all time if it wasn't for you guys. Speaking of which, what game should I try next? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also, quick update, I'm still sick, so I haven't been putting out as many videos, but I think I'm finally at the end of it, so I feel like I can finally get into some of the bigger projects I have planned for this year. Make sure to stay tuned for those, and if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing. You can always change your mind later, but I'm going to do my best to keep you around. Anyways, thanks for watching, keep on gaming to the fullest, and I'll see you later. Peace.